live, so welcome to Seinfeld. This is the old man, so anybody have any ideas? Any place to start, any character?
Yes, Mr. Fields.
Mr. Fields, what's going on here?
Probably sounds like hints of dementia, I'd say.
Dementia. All right, so what's the definition of dementia / major neurocognitive disorder?
So progressive cognitive decline, but it should be like over some period of time, not something acute.
Right. If it were acute, what do you think?
Delirium.
Is a question, how would you actually proceed with regard to your evaluation or workup? Unclear whether or not this is progressive or acute, and not said maybe you don't have collateral history just yet.
Get labs and everything.
Labs and imaging what?
To rule out any reversible causes.
Right, so you're in the middle ground, usually called reversible dementias. Bottom line is, as a clinician, if you see signs and symptoms that suggest one or the other, fine. But if they're clouded and you're not sure, always treat like delirium. Always treat like delirium, because that's the condition that's acute. That's a potential medical emergency. And you've got to think delirium before you can rule in dementia or major neurocognitive disorder. All right. Cognitive decline, give me some DSM terms with regard to the domains of cognition.
Language.
Language or communication, right? What else?
Memory.
Memory's the big one. Right? Memory's the big one. Matter of fact, in DSM-4, memory was required. Concentration and attention, executive functioning, right? Motor perception, motor skills, with intact motor and sensory. Right? So difficulty following a 3-step command of taking a piece of paper, folding it in half, and putting it down. Motor skills, right? Thought I missed one, but that's dementia. So, Mr. Fields, what else do we see, Mr. Fields, that is consistent with this term, major neurocognitive disorder?
He accused the aide of stealing from him.
Right.
Fields?
What?
Hi, I'm Jerry Seinfeld. The agency sent me.
The agency? What agency? The CIA?
No, the
Who
senior-
let you in here?
The woman.
Oh, her. She steals from me. Steals my money. She said she doesn't speak English. My ass, she doesn't speak English. Plays that freaking voodoo music. Tries to hypnotize me. She thinks she's gonna turn me into a zombie and then rob me blind.
The evidence of psychosis, paranoia in this case, the context of major neurocognitive disorder is significant. It means as much as 50%. How do you treat? Specifically the paranoia. How do you treat paranoia? Antipsychotics. Okay. Now, for psychosis-related dementia, in your shelf exam, you may ask, there's a black box warning. So what must you have concern about before prescribing these medications?
I think in the elderly, they increase stroke risk
Stroke, that's it.
overall.
CVA, that come up on exams. And if a lot of these disorders have a vascular component too. So you've got to be very careful with regard to the prescribing of atypical antipsychotics in the context of dementia-related psychosis or major neurocognitive-related psychosis. I don't know if we changed that term yet, but they will. Anything else with regard to Mr. Fields? No? All right. Another character?
So Newman,
Newman.
when he's at the record store, he's turning his unacceptable feelings towards, I think his name was Bob, the record guy, by acting out against him and screaming at him, even though it's not really what he wants to say, it's what Kramer's saying.
Mm-hmm.
He's still displaying the mechanism of acting out towards him and kind of regressing.
This guy is nothing but a piece of crap.
You are nothing but a piece of crap.
A piece of crap.
A piece of crap.
I find you extremely ugly.
I find you extremely ugly.
Do you? You admit a foul and unpleasant odor.
You emit a foul and unpleasant odor.
Oh, is that right? I loathe you.
I loathe you.
That's it! Get out of my store!
Make us.
I'll make you!
Acting out towards him and kind of regressing as well.
Okay.
I
So-
thought he also showed traits of like dependence,
Yeah.
personality disorder. And the first time he shows up in the episode, he's like running desperately looking for Kramer. And once he finds him, he like totally calms down. Kramer's the one to calm him down when he gets worked up about the whole postal service like crises. And then he's voicing out everything that Kramer tells him to say. He can't really say or decide things on his own. So he's just basically his throughout the whole episode, he's just being run by Kramer.
Is there?
Because the mail never stops. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. There's never a let up. It's relentless. Every day it piles up more and more and more, and you gotta get it out. But the more you get out, the more it keeps coming in. And then the barcode reader breaks, and it's Publishers Clearinghouse Day.
All right.
The very idea that you just mentioned, not being able to do anything on his own, is the cardinal trait of the dependent personality. The individual who can't take their every next step without some kind of affirmation, no matter how routine a third-person party would deem that next step. That's dependent personality. We use the word acting out or the phrase acting out. This is a defense mechanism, so these are processes, subconscious processes of the ego that aim to eliminate or reduce anxiety. Acting out is an observable action on an impulse so as to not become aware of that impulse. And that might be what's going on here with regard to Kramer. Because he's actually relaying Kramer's thoughts, this is a real twisted, I think, demonstration of maybe even projection, right? So if this were his own thoughts, these were his own thoughts, then projection, I think, would fit quite nicely. But since they're his own thoughts implanted by another, it's not projection because of that, but it's a kind of a very Larry David type of way to demonstrate projection of all things. That was interesting. By the way, there's the reference is to Cyrano de Bergerac. Anybody familiar with the fictional character? What illness?
Cyrano de Bergerac?
I mean, not that it's literally written or, in
This
the...
is heartbreaking. I didn't think you were diagnosed.
Well, I mean, the general sense that he has to do what he does.
How do you say narcissistic and he's not?
What does he do? What's the whole theme of Cyrano de Bergerac?
Isn't that the one I feel like writes love letters on behalf of someone? He helps somebody else who's not as good looking as him to win the girl, basically.
Right, so what, the person who does not believe he is good looking. Why doesn't he think he's good looking?
But he has a really large nose.
He has an imagined defect in appearance. Yeah, I mean, you have to investigate that. And if the plan wasn't in effect, this is a person who might be socially inhibited as a result, i.e. clinical significant anxiety. So this might be body dysmorphic disorder. What's body dysmorphic disorder?
Overwhelming anxiety leads to how you perceive yourself. And
Specific body.
yes.
What happens to the body part is your body image in general.
Bulimia.
Yeah, then you're getting into eating disorders. Eating disorders in that way, in that context, are almost a variant of a body dysmorphic disorder. It's almost a specific subset, very treatment-resistant subset. There's one more other preoccupation syndrome. That P word comes up 3 times in the DSM. One for body dysmorphic, one for the eating disorders, and then this other condition, which actually just changed terms when an individual has a preoccupation with having a serious or contracting a serious illness, despite evidence of illness anxiety disorder. Those are the 3 conditions you'll have to tease apart on your shelf again. All right. Any other characters here? Oh, by the way, somebody made a comment about issues pertaining to the Postal Service. What issues? Going postal. That's actually a term in the DSM, and it has another name too. Going postal, I think, is in parentheses. What's the actual clinical term that can appear on your shelf exam? Going postal. It's called amok. Amok. It's a culturally bound syndrome that finds its way onto standardized exams. So we'll talk about some of those culturally bound syndromes a little later in your clerkship, but it's always good to review and get familiar with those names. All right. Any other characters here you want to discuss? What about George? Did you let him know this morning?
I mean, he still displays kind of these feelings of social inadequacy and a fear of embarrassment in social situations, especially with dating, which lends itself to kind of either an avoidant personality or a social anxiety disorder. You know, when he says that he needs to find someone who doesn't speak English so that he doesn't embarrass himself because she won't know what he's saying.
Maybe I need someone who doesn't speak English.
Yeah, how about a mute?
A mute would be good.
Where are you gonna meet a mute?
This is what my life has come to, trying to meet a mute.
Differentiate for me the term you just brought up, social anxiety disorder, from agoraphobia.
You know, larger spaces with agoraphobia, right? Or public spaces. You can't more so.
Yeah. Use the E word there, yeah. The larger spaces in which one can't escape in the event of becoming symptomatic. And symptomatic, the go-to example in psychiatry has always been panic disorder, but could really be anything. It's agoraphobia. And how do those two differentiate from separation anxiety disorder?
In separation anxiety, the anxiety revolves around either being separated from the person that you have the dependence on, or thoughts of being separated from them. So they're preoccupied with, you know, sleeping away from home, or the other person dying, and they'll have nightmares of being separated or their loved ones dying from it.
It's not necessarily where you're going, but there'll be evidence in your clinical vignette that it's where they're separating from that's invoking the anxiety. All right. Some quick hits. George has the comment, "What gives you pleasure?" Any movie, horror movie that allude to that in mind? That's Hellraiser. Anybody go see Hellraiser? You're gonna be watching Hellraiser pretty soon. Good. So we might as well write that down now because it's coming. While eating in Monks, George uses the word mute. Right, so what is mutism?
What was selective
In a
mutism?
particular context or situation.
So that's selective mutism,
Yeah.
which is a DSM diagnosis in the anxiety disorder chapter. It's new to the anxiety disorders in the DSM-5. What is mutism?
Not capable of speaking.
And whereas selective mutism is a DSM diagnosis, mutism, just a general term, is a clinical exam finding. Specifically, it's a mental exam finding. Differentiate between mutism and aphonia?
Mutism. Aphonia, you're not making an effort. I'm sorry, aphonia, you're making an effort, but you cannot make noise.
Why?
Yeah. From a vocal cord
Yeah.
issue or something like
It's a
that.
physical issue.
Yeah.
Mutism is not. All right. Let's see. He also, George, we're still on George, reports that he has a void, VOID, not a void, but he has a void, which, given his age, might lend to a midlife crisis. Anybody know the clinical term for this per Eric Erickson? Stagnation. Right, so this is Erickson's psychosocial theory of personality development, where it's the published work is the 8 stages of man, and midlife is your 7th and penultimate stage, where an individual achieves generativity, and if not, stagnates. And in lay terms, that's the midlife crisis, that's the void, that's George.
I don't know, Jerry, something's missing. There's a void, Jerry, there's a void.
A deep, yawning chasm.
And there's got to be more to life than this. What gives you pleasure?
Listening to you. I listen to this for 15 minutes, I'm on top of the world. Your misery is my pleasure.
Anybody know the 8th and final stage?
That?
certainly around the issue of that, yeah.
Acceptance.
Ego integrity, which is basically acceptance on steroids. Yeah. And if one doesn't have ego integrity, the default will be despair. We'll go through the 8 stages at some other point too. We'll talk about the personality disorders. We'll run through Erickson quickly. All right. Any other aspects of The Old Man? Our Seinfeld episode this morning, season 4, that you want to discuss?
Elaine.
What's going on with Elaine?
That desire to want to do something good, thinks it's a great idea, and then shows up at the person's house, and all of a sudden, this is not such a great idea.
Start what?
I signed up to do volunteer work with senior citizens.
Really?
Yeah, God, I can't tell you how I feel. I mean, I feel so good. I really feel good. The strange thing is, I mean, I haven't even met the woman yet.
Not such a great idea. It's that personal sort of it's like, almost like, I want to help as long as it doesn't make me completely uncomfortable. You know, that sort of parameter, which I thought was really nice.
What would the defense mechanism be if this were a subconscious process for Elaine that gets her out there wanting to help?
Altruism?
Altruism, good. Yeah. And unfortunately, it sounds like her ego defense itself is in conflict with some other aspect of herself that quickly gets uncomfortable. Anybody else here? Characters? Nope. Okay, what are we doing at noon today? Or 12:30 today?
This was Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko and? Anybody get to watch Evil Dead 2? Oh, we've got a few. Good. All right, so it'll be a fun discussion. So come back here at 12:30. Otherwise, everybody have a great morning, Rats.